Hey guys, this is Allison from Alley Cat Creations. How are you? Please like, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and share if the content resonates with you and you think someone might benefit from it. And if you get anything from my work, a connected dot, an epiphany, a mind blown moment, a new book to read, and a new author to explore, please consider supporting my work. And all the links are at the bottom of my video. But liking is just as good. So I've been getting a shit ton of downloads the last 2 days, and my brain has been overwhelmed with a lot of content that I'm trying to sift through. So what did I do today? I smoked some ribs. That's 4 hours. So I sat outside under my gazebo pop-up thingy and meditated and grounded and read a really good book, Transylvania Sunrise. For those of you Carrie Cassidy talks about this book by Radio Sundu a lot in some of her messages, and I had wanted to read this book for a long time. Although I cannot read it on this channel, I might do some insights on it, but it's all in divine timing because I still have a ton of books to read. Most of the books are read, some are not. And some of them are really big, massive. So I started that series. Fun times. But yeah, I've been which means I have to call the medium soon and get my spirit guides to come through, because that was, although I love to hear from my parents, I need my ascended masters to come through. Everything happens in divine timing, but I made a short. Before I get into the book, I just want to put this out there. I am going to be doing, I'm trying new things out so we can get more traffic to my channel. And that's just because it's time that people start opening up their minds and getting out of the one book paradigm or the one concept paradigm. I think it's very important. So I was doing what I usually do with my friends with We Not Me. And I was doing my moderation stuff and drawing my puppy. And I don't have a puppy, it's a friend's puppy I'm drawing for them. Just to put that out there. As much as I love dogs, I will not have a dog in my house. Will not have a dog. If I go back to work and I go out to work, I feel bad for puppy. Kittens are more independent, and put that to rest. So I'm sitting down in my living room. I have a bean bag, and I usually prop my back up, and I kind of do everything on the floor. And Morgan Cat is sitting, she really likes to sit in front of me or near me at all times, except coming down here. She really comes down here. But and I have these little balls that light up that are used in ghost hunting scenarios. I bought them for Morgan, hoping that she does like to play, that would pique her interest. Not really. So I had one in my living room. I was cleaning and it bopped. So I left it. It was near my couch. And I see it going off in the corner of my eye. So I take my phone and start recording. And then it stopped blinking. And I'm showing everybody where Morgan is, so everybody knows that there's nothing around to set it off. Or she jumped down and I took the photo. She was already there in front of me, nicely nestled and sleeping. And then, like, here's what I'm literally doing is watching chat and listening to two amazing patriots spew truth. And then I said, well, I guess Spirit's here, and it lights up. So I put that video on as a short, but I'm thinking also, I have a grounding mat. I want to go outside to show that those things really do work. Like, some people need tangible, seeable evidence, so I'm gonna do one of those. Today wasn't that good because it wasn't. We had some lightning, and I didn't want. I'm supposed to be harnessing this, so I didn't want to mess with it. Anywho, so if you're watching this, please look out for some shorts. Please give a like, and if you're interested, I might do some ghost hunty stuff, just to show people, not to prove the existence of spirit, just to show that it is around us at all times. And if you are able to notice the signs and tap in, there are things that you can document with that to show people, look, I'm not crazy. The Truth About Evolution and the Bible. I normally would leave this to next week and start the other, keep going with the line of succession of books. But this is important. And I want to finish the book because there's like a plethora of books I want to read from them. But this is good, so why not? I'm in the mood for it. Part 2, The Chariot of Fire, the Divine Mother. Buckle up, because the next 2 sections are lengthy. Quote, behold, there appear a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. End quote. And that might correspond. Went up. Just saying. One of our favorite songs, if you watch the Addams Family, but it's not that. Quote, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. For reals, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I looked over Jordan. What did I see? Coming for to carry me home. A band of angels coming after me, coming for to carry me home. And I grow spiritual. I refuse to say that word in terms of what that really is. Don't like it. All manifestation takes place according to definite cosmic laws. And since physical life is but an outer manifestation of inner, invisible life force, which emanates from the cosmic source of the universal one life, and we see the entire cosmos manifest as though breathed out by the breath of God, it is easy to realize that each phase of manifestation or life cycle represents a new cycle outbreathing or cycle renewal of God expression. Where now? Therefore, we do not have to delve into abstruse scientific evidence to conclude that all nature is but one of the manifold expressions of God. The manifestation of spiritual sun, like the sun outside that you see, or sun behind the sun, is called the chariot of the sun, the chariot of fire, or the fire of the Lord. This chariot of fire periodically descends low to earth approximately every 2,000 years. Nibiru. Or nemesis. As the first effect of the sun in spring is to melt the banks of snow, thaw out the ground, and purify the earth of the debris accumulated during winter, so the first effect of the chariot of fire is to melt the rigid, set, and crystallized habits, customs, ideas, and conditions among mankind, to melt the heart and purify the minds of humanity and bring a new outpouring of the threefold aspect of God, divine light, life, and love, which shall enable the soil of men's hearts to bring forth anew the seeds of their higher possibilities and powers, to renew their spiritual life for a new season of growth and expression. This also carries home to the heart of the Godhead the fruits of the last age, Piscean, through which the world has just passed. As his chariot of fire draws close to earth of necessity, mighty changes take place. Changes in the earth itself, comparable to the breaking up of winter and thawing of the ground. Changes in thought, life, customs, and institutions of humanity, comparable to revolution in all phases of life, in science, industry, economics, and society, government, and religion. The chaff of former seasons, the husks, or outer forms, which once held grains of truth, must now be cast aside as a new grain begins to sprout for the new age. All outgrown forms or expressions of truth, whether scientific, philosophical, or religious, must be gathered up and consumed by the new outbreathing of the fire of the Lord, just as the farmer gathers up and burns the weeds and trash of the past season, that all the good which remains, the mineral salts of the ashes, may go to enrich the soil for the coming season. Just so much the weeds humanity has allowed to grow and trash, which civilization has allowed to accumulate, be consumed, that whatsoever of good it contains may go to enrich the soil of mankind and help the spiritual seed of love, compassion, cooperation, and helpful service to spring forth, the seeds of good lying dormant in the hearts of even the most unevolved and seemingly debased may awaken into life as man's life, and understanding are enriched by mistakes corrected, faults overcome, and trials tested, bravely borne. The chariot of fire represents the same power that enveloped Elijah and carried him up to heaven out of the sight of Elisha and the 50 sons of the prophets of Jericho. It is the same cloud by day and pillar of fire by night that led the children of Israel through the wilderness. The same cloud of glory that took Jesus up out of the sight of his disciples as his ascension. As in the case of Elisha, only hearts attuned to the mightiness of the divine flame can see or understand the radiance of one who has entered the chariot of fire. For the chariot is none other than the descent of the Shikda, by which we understand the presence of the Holy Spirit, speaking and communicating itself to men by revelation. Its descent assures us of the possibility of our correlating with the higher aspects of our soul qualities, that we can be lifted up and illumined as a chariot of fire. To the initiates into the mysteries of all religions, this chariot of fire is well known, for there are certain ceremonies of the mysteries which cannot be performed until the priests, by chanting certain especially arranged mantras and lifting up and attuning their consciousness to the key note up of the higher realms, are able to see the chariot of fire descend as a cloud of glory over the sanctuary and give them the powers necessary for the ceremony. Today, as the cosmic chariot again draws near, that the Son of God, the light of the world, the Christos, may step forth among mankind, its fiery steeds start down the steep descent, which marks the close of a cosmic day or age, the Piscean, and a dark night period must be passed ere the earth can awaken to the new day in a new chamber of the zodiac Aquarius. The decree has been sent forth from on high, quote, gather the grain into the garner, but burn the chaff with unquestionable fire, end quote. The unquenchable fire is the fire of the Lord in its consuming aspect, which must consume the husks of civilization's past stage, everything that prevents man's spiritual evolution and a higher and truer expression of God's divine plan. The great lesson then that man must learn, slowly at first, but in all its fullness as the new age advances, is the true meaning of the fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of man through the presence of his Son, and the all-pervading, ever-enduring love and power of the Divine Mother to bring forth good out of evil. We speak of the warmth of love, thus recognizing it as a manifestation of divine fire, the everlasting fire that makes the earth a living thing, bringing forth in beauty and abundance. When the fire of the sun, it's tempered by water, that fire which will not consume, but illume, unfold, and manifest the godlike qualities of whoever so correlates with it. For this reason, insincere or stimulated love and its correlates, false sympathy and compassion, are easily detected by one who is at all sensitive, for when not genuine, they have no soul warmth or sparks of divine fire in them. But love can be the most devastating force in the world, in our character, in our lives, and in humanity. If we turn it outside and vilify it, if we call love something vile, if we identify it with the passions of an animal body and seek to strife instead of purifying and uplifting them, if we seek to push it aside and say the mind is all important, the ancient teachings are all important, what was brought the world into the state in which we find it today, largely these same ancient teachings that will have nothing to do with new ideas, new conceptions, and new realizations of God, these, together with the medieval conceptions of teachings of Christ, false interpretations of the message of God of love, which identify love with passion and seek to kill it out. Hence, we must be open to new interpretations that are in harmony with the advances of the age in which we live, if we would progress wisely. If we seek to confine this divine fire to its lowest avenues of expression, such as love of self, love of possessions, love of sexual indulgences, etc., it becomes a devastating and consuming fire, for it so transcends those limited avenues that it burns them out when confined to them. Just so with earth, when water, the love of the Divine Mother, does not commingle with the fiery force of the Son, Father, the earth is burned and becomes a burdened desert. Yet even in its burning aspect, it is the divine fire operating through the law of karma to bring to humanity a realization of the vital truth which it must ultimately learn, that the tares which it has allowed to grow among the wheat must be consumed, that from their ashes the misdirect life force may be redeemed for the good of all. Therefore, while one aspect, God, is a consuming fire, we must never forget that he is also divine love, a love so mighty, so long-suffering, and so capable of seeing the true inwards of man, intent, and reason for his failures, that in divine compassion, man is repeatedly given new opportunities to respond to that love. Humanity as a whole is also periodically given such opportunities. This new Aquarian age is just such a new opportunity for man to face his true self and once more choose whether he will ally himself with and be guided by the love of the inner divine self, or be led astray by the lower temporal loves of temporary and evanescent human personality. Hence, those of the new Aquarian age, like those at the beginnings of all former ages, must face the living flame of God the Father in all its fury, cleansing, transmuting, and regenerating aspects. By learning this great lesson that God is love, love in all its aspects, we can understand how the fire of the Lord can consume, transmute, and evolve the base metals of human frailties into the pure gold of spiritual attainment. When the warmth of this flame of divine love is recognized by a mortal, it arouses a glow of adoration and awe. For the mortal consciousness has, to that extent, united itself to a vibration of the divine. And this response, even though at first temporary, brings added life, new understanding, illumined inspiration, and protection to all who recognize and give expression to it. This is one explanation of the mantra, quote, "Thy banner over me is love," end quote. While cosmically the chariot of fire descends from the purification, illumination, and generation of mankind as a whole only every 2,000 years, as it is doing today, yet the rays of its power descended individually to every heart that attunes itself to the divine flame, no matter how intellectually ignorant or sorrowful or hopeless that one may seem. In fact, it is more often much so-called simple souls who are apt to call down the fire of the Lord and recognize the touch of the divine flame than those who have obtained great intellectual development and high position in the world at the expense of their heart qualities. For to enter the chariot of fire, we do not need to scale mountains of learning or delve deep into the relics of ancient lore through preponderous tomes or other men's thoughts, through expression of wisdom suitable for bygone ages, but not for today, nor seek wisdom among the dead and outgrown concepts of ancient schools of thought, seeking the everlasting flame among the ashes of the past. We can enter the chariot by lighting the flame within our own hearts here and now. There is a well-known yet very primitive song, the refrain of which is quoted at the head of this lesson. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. The song deeply touches the hearts of most persons. Its simple faith, its primitive pathos, and plaintive melody awaken in them a vibration or vague memory of something only too apt to be pushed aside as childish or mere imagination. It touches the emotions because it awakens a soul cry from the depths of the human heart, the cry of a soul lost in the desert of the outer material life, the cry to be carried back to its real home, its spiritual home. This chariot that we ask to swing low is the mighty onrushing power of the Shvinkta, the invisible manifestation of the threefold Godhead, a living power that descends from the throne of God into those current of fury forests we seek to step, there to rest in its wondrous power by comfort. by its tender love and renewed by its mighty strength, be our path or condition into the outer life, what it may be. When things of the outer life no longer satisfy and former friends fail us, if we cry out for our hearts, swing low, sweet chariot, the mighty God love sends down a ray of this chariot into our hearts to lift us up to the heart of the Divine Mother, the Comforter, whose tender love can wipe away all tears, all sorrow, all trace of sin from our consciousness, leaving the great law as karma to work out the outer adjustment. For what is karma but working out of mistakes by giving the soul a new opportunity through drawing a new breath of life to face and solve the same problems it's failed to solve, or to conquer the temptations to which it yielded before, with the new strength and understanding gained by a sojourn in the home of love between incarnations. Once we learn, as all ultimately must, that the fire of the Lord is but the outshining of the divine radiance destined to consume all evil, purify the good, and transmute the dross into pure gold. Purify the good and transmute the dross into pure gold. We have learned one of our chief lessons in life. How eagerly then will we cry out, swing low, sweet chariot. For we realize that it is a living cloud of glory, which surrounds the altar of the Most High, which lifts up the hearts of all desolate ones out of mortal sight, which can lift us, the real inner self, out of the physical body for a time being, out of all sordid physical conditions, and carry us home, home where we can kneel in the great temple of the Son of Suns, while the living flame licks around our empty bodies and purifies, refines, and glorifies them. Then the chariot becomes not a consuming fire from which we shrink back appalled, but the mighty flame of God love burning in the hearts of all who can recognize it as the warming, life-giving fire of love. It comes to us on the wings of the great bird of life, at our call for its real life, to all who lay down the burdens of self and the attractions of the world and cry out to be taken to the real home, where they could see God face to face, not after death, but here and now. Then the chariot of fire fills us with the enthusiasm instead of fear, with burning zeal to do the will of the Father, with eager desire to help on the work of the illumination and regeneration of humanity, a willingness that the flame shall burn from us all personal faults and failings, whether it carries us into the thickest of the fray or into the desolate desert of life. Once we have entered into the chariot, all our faculties and God powers are simulated and begin to unfold. No longer is our intellect wholly analytical and critical, but flaming with love, which makes our words of cheer and comfort burn into the hearts of our hearers. It fills us with life and strength and vigor. Henceforth, life is real and earnest, for the chariot of fire has carried us home to our true spiritual home, to the heart of the divine. The spiritual home of each soul is not the old-fashioned idea of a psalm singing innocuous bliss, where we loft our time away in idleness, but is that higher spiritual consciousness which we realize the reason for our existence, realize our real place in life and our true work to accomplish in the world, both within ourselves and within our environment, no matter in what outer circumstance we may find ourselves, and no matter what our outer trials and difficult experiences we may have to pass through. When we understand this, how gladly we will cry, swing low, sweet chariot, so low that I may step in, that thy mighty power may carry me home to the heart of God, where I can see my place and my part in the divine plan, and gain the power of the flame to accomplish it. Thus must the chariot of fire ever swing low at the call of the soul, so close to earth that it can carry home those children of earth who are ready. For only those who have been carried home and been filled with divine love can in their turn pour out the love for the help of mankind, to touch their hearts, bring hope to the discouraged, and comfort the cheer to the sorrowing. For this world, God's world, which he loves, with a mighty yearning to save, can never be saved by cold intellectuality, by sarcasm or pomposity, or by great claims or the suggestion, I am holier than thou. I am the chosen one, hence know it all. God does not say to his children, kneel down before me and worship at my feet. God does not say, gaze upon me and abase, for I am mighty and you are insignificant. Rather does God say, you are my loved children, made in my image and after my likeness. And what is this image and likeness? It certainly is not the outer body of flesh and blood, but is the inner threefold flame of divinity hidden within the secret chamber of our hearts. The power of the Father, the love of the Mother, and the light of the Christos combined into threefold flame. It may be but like a babe in a cradle, covered up for a time, perhaps, unknown and unsuspected, yet vitally alive and capable of being uncovered and developed, capable of awakening in us divine realization and proving to us that we are divine, capable of taking control of our minds, guiding our lives if only recognized and obeyed. It's all here. And it's all within. All within. That was a great section, by the way. God. Part 3. The Christos, the Son. Quote, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever so believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. End quote. St. John. Quote, all things are delivered unto me of my Father, and no man knoweth the Son but the Father. Neither knoweth any man the Father, save the Son, and he to whomever so the Son will reveal him. End quote. St. Matthew. In our first lesson on God, we consider him as a threefold flame, the three persons of the Trinity. We also consider him as the Father, the creative power which projected all things into manifestation. Pause. Check. Why I feel we're in a holographic, ontological, mathematical, simulated matrix. It says it right there. We're projected. It's projected. Oh. All things into manifestation. That power which becomes the transmuting and consuming fire of the Lord for all forms when their cycle of manifestation has ended. In the second lesson, we considered God as the Divine Mother, the chariot of fire, which in intimate love and tenderness is sent down into sinning and sorrowing humanity as a comforter who welcomes to her bosom all who will look up and recognize her and step into her chariot, and who will carry them back to their real home, the loving heart of divinity. There they will be comforted, refreshed, and taught of God. There they will hear him say, quote, neither do I condemn thee, go and sin no more, end quote. In this lesson, we consider God in his third aspect, the Christos, the only begotten Son who is sent forth to manifest in human form because of the crying need of his ignorant children for a new realization of meaning of Emmanuel, or God with us, a manifestation of God which they can see and touch and hear with their physical senses. Another pause here, because I hate to go off on a tangent, and I'm trying not to, but people need tangible evidence. This is this 3D concept of people cannot get out of their heads, cannot use their imagination, can't believe, even though it's a lie, but you can't have the faith that somebody's telling you something that is correct and truth. Me saying what I do, I don't waste my energy on things that are irrelevant to my life, or anything that is just a waste of energy. I'm not wasting energy. I did that a lot in my younger life. I don't need to prove to myself anymore what I am. I get validations because sometimes I think it is my imagination. I am an artist. I'm very creative, and sometimes things get confused. But my little short video of showing that I have spirit around me, how is a light going off when you have to touch it to go off? How is my old address in Staten Island in a book about a Stargate? That's tangible evidence. I've shown on maybe one or two of my videos the Draco in my house reflected in a mask, a plague mask. Tell me how those things aren't tangible evidence. Yet people are like, well, she's batshit crazy. She's making this up. It's inflating her ego. No, nothing comes from my ego space, because I want to help people understand there's way more to this reality than what you're perceiving. There's way more. These authors go into the realms of the living dead. That's a book that they also wrote, telling you about the astral realms, the ethereal realms. There's different realms, different densities, things you can't perceive because it's vibratorily oscillating at a higher rate or a lower rate than you physically are. So you can't see that. But worlds do merge. And sometimes you can capture spirits, you can capture things in other densities on camera. You can get pictures. So me collecting this tangible evidence for people, I don't care if you believe me or you don't. I'm showing you. And again, it's so that people who are so stuck start understanding there's way more to this reality than you can ever imagine. Do not fear it. Please don't fear it. Go within and find the God within you. Find the Christos spark that made you. And you'll start realizing so much more about reality in yourself. They have such a profound, and yes, they're Christian mystics. So they're going to quote the Bible, and that's totally okay. But look deeper into what they're saying. It's profound. So again, Yeshua was brought here into manifestation. Just like I said that my soul had to wait for the perfect circumstance where I can jump into this reality. And be adopted to be taken to the land where the Stargate was, because that was my mission this time in this reality. This is what I chose. And I had to pick, it could have been any color, any creed, anybody. I came into the circumstances the way I came in to be seated at that house. Now ask your own selves, why are you here? Why did your soul choose to incarnate at this time? Why did you choose your situation? Why did you choose things? Ask the whys, because you'll start getting your answers. Slowly. I'm still getting my whys answered. I've been asking why, since I was a little kid, but on a whole different level. And in the last 10 years of my life, a lot of those whys started creeping up a little bit more and a little bit more. And why am I here? And I keep having all this difficulty happening to me. I keep having stalemates. I keep getting stuck. I keep being steered in different directions, and I don't know which one is of my highest good, but supposedly they all are, because I have missions all over the place. So it's which one never presents itself. Sorry, guys, my body's, we have storms incoming. So it's just think about your whys and ask those deeper questions. Don't sit there in well, I guess I'm here because, no, ask the deeper questions. Why did you incarnate with your family? What lessons did you learn from them? What did you impart on them? I taught my parents a shit ton. I think I was here more from my parents learning than they were from me. Like, they taught me how to be human. They taught me how to get along in life, sort of. They raised me to be a moral, conscious being. Meanwhile, I'm teaching them so much because I was the black sheep of my family. I was the rebel of everybody. I ticked to my own talk, and I did not care what anybody had to think about me. And I still am to this day like that. I don't care. I'm doing me, and that what makes me happy, I'm doing. But again, you're no different from Yeshua. Yeshua came down to teach the law of one. He came down to teach ascension mechanics. He came down to tell everybody, you are just like me. I'm an equal to all of you. The only difference is I remember. I have the remembering encoded in my genetics. I know where I come from. You all forgot. Here's the difference. That's the difference. But Yeshua's on equal footing. We're all fractals of source. We're all equal. Some of us are consciously more advanced, so we are helping awaken those who are receptive to our understandings and our perceptions. Everybody, the world is metaphysics. Everybody perceives something differently because every angle of the matrix is separately different, but all yet the same. I explained this once before. I went into a drawing class, a huge room with a bunch of shit in the middle, and no matter where you sat, you're getting a different angle of the objects in the middle, even though they're all the same. You're drawing an angle, they're drawing a different angle, and they're all drawing different angles of the same perceived thing, but you're perceiving it and seeing it differently because you're seeing it from yourself and your point of view. If that makes any sense to somebody. But think about that on a mega scale of just about everything. You're going to perceive what is meant for your brain to perceive and resonate with. You might not resonate with everybody you come into contact with, what are probably saying similar things, but it's the frequency, the oscillation, the vibration that it is said in, and the connection someone feels to another force of energy, that you either get that spark of inspiration and resonate with the message, or someone else that says a similar thing is going to spark you. That's why it's so important that more than one person speaks and teaches and goes out in the world and does them authentically. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. People haven't yet gotten out of the perception biases and judgments. But those who are out of that stance and understands we've been everything and we're everything before we entered into this world, you're not looking at the outwardly appearance. Again, Yeshua came down to teach this stuff. And a lot of deaf ears are still having deaf ears. Not deaf and not that. Well, we consider God thus under three aspects for exploratory purposes. We must remember that these three are one. Just as we may consider a man as a kind father watching over, protecting, providing for his children, and the same man in loving, tender oneness with his wife, the mother of his children, the homemaker and comforter, whose loving sympathy helps him to forget the cares and worries of the day, and whose love, like a chariot of fire, carries him into peace and comfort of the home where his heart is. And the same man as a dutiful and obedient son, gladly following in the footsteps of a wise and loving father whom he reveres. These three markedly different aspects are not three different men, only three different aspects of the same man manifested to meet different needs and conditions. Just so are the three persons of the Trinity, three aspects of the one God. It is very significant that the word begotten is used in the Nicene Creed when referring to the Son begotten of the Father, begotten, not made of one substance with the Father, by whom all things were made. This gives the correct transcendental and cosmic view of the Son as a divine being, not a mere mortal who became illumined, but the universal principle of divine light and life, the Christos. In him was life, and with life was the light of men. This spiritual Son bears to humanity somewhat the same relation that the physical sun bears to the planet. For just as the sun is a source of all physical light and heat for the whole planet, so does the spiritual Son fill with warmth and spiritual light everyone who is born into the world, whether they recognize and respond to the light or not. This is the Christ seed, which is planted in the soil of every heart. Although it may lie dormant, unrecognized, and unmanifested for a long time, someday in some incarnation there is bound to come a spiritual springtime when this Christ seed will begin to put out shoots and grow and manifest in the life and the consciousness. And this time is now for the majority of us. Hence, no one can say he or she is left out, because so humble and insignificant, any more than the humblest weed in the garden is left out of the sunshine because it is not cultivated flower. All creation was intended to work in harmony with and minister to the evolution of its crowning achievement, man, that he might awaken to the light of the Christos within him and have dominion over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. Note how the power of the Father has provided for every need of his children, every wholesome thing to furnish us food, and healing essences of herb and mineral, provided ages in advance for all possible future ills. Note how the love of the Divine Mother provides the beauties of flower and tree and sky and sea to thrill us with joy and happiness, how she comforts us with her tender love as a mother nestles her babe over her heart. Every mother who bears a child carries it in a chariot of fire close to her heart until it is ready to enter the sphere of its life in the outer world, there too partake of the blessing so bountiful provided. Just so does the Divine Mother carry us in her chariot of fire, the divine womb, until we are born spiritually and are willing and eager to take up the work given us by the Father. Know how the light of the sun illumes our mind, expands our consciousness, and enlarges our capacity both to comprehend that light and to see, and to use all things in outer life to manifest his glory. Go out in the early morning after a long drought has been broken by a copious rain during the night and see how the earth rejoices in its refreshing. See how the sun shines forth as a brazen of love and thrill at the miracle that has bloomed forth from what but yesterday was a desolate waste of dry and weathered foliage. Then realize that the uprushing of the same life force of the Christos, which has wrought such a miracle when merely diffused throughout nature, can perform a still greater miracle than when focused in us. For we are so advanced beyond all other forms in nature that the Christ light and life is individualized in us and can therefore unfold in and through us the pattern of the inner self, the divine man. Realize that to the degree that we respond to the urge of the Christ within, it illume our entire being, opening the tiny buds of the Christ consciousness in us, so often lying concealed and dormant in the sacred centers of our bodies, just as the sun opens the hidden sprouts of the rose until they push out from a seemingly dead branch, first as buds so tiny, then as they drink in the rain and absorb the sun, gradually unfold and begin to show their color until the rose finally becomes a thing of beauty and the essence of its heart perfumes the air to the joy of all. This is a marvelous lesson for man to learn, for just as the physical life force unfolds the centers of the rose to the perfection of its inner pattern, so can the spiritual life force of the Son of God unfold in us the image of God, with all the gifts, faculties, and powers which the Father has built into man's divine pattern. All these God powers are built into our bodies as seeds of Christhood, hidden in the 7 sacred centers, but they remain undeveloped until the outer man begins to recognize and correlate with the Christ within. Then those germs of divinity begin to sprout and put forth and ultimately unfold the image of God within until we are able to demonstrate that we are sons of God. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ. This is the only way safely to unfold these sacred centers, to grow as the flower grows. To open them forcibly or prematurely through special exercises is like tearing open the bud of a rose. In the allegorical language of the Bible, these sacred centers in the body constitute the manger, or those centers of life force to which the animal nature comes from its food, but in the midst of which the Christ is laid at the moment of his birth, or when the realization of the Christ takes place within our consciousness. This unfoldment is the fruit of the tree of life, spinal cord planted in the midst of our garden, through which if we feed on it in our hearts, with prayer and thanksgiving, we shall obtain eternal life. To unfold these centers of Christ's force, we do not have to turn our backs upon the beauties of nature or forego all the happiness and joy of life which God has surrounded us, and the faculties for whose enjoyment God has built into our mind and body. Much less do we have to despair or despise the wonderful body God has given us, or starve and abuse the flesh and crucify ourselves with false conceptions of God's love and his desires for us, which were thought necessary during the Dark Ages, any more than we have to follow the opinions of Dark Ages now in other fields of life. Nor do we have to go through the years of self-immolation, cruel torture, and degradation, which many ancient teachings hold is only true preparation for Christhood. For the true mystic, there is no elaborate ceremonial needed, no wearisome series of exercises and difficult mental concentration necessary, only a constant permitting of his love to flow to the Christ, because he cannot help it. Only a lifting up of the Christ out of the manger, where he is now hidden, and where the food for the animal man is now doubly blessed, because he has manifested in the midst of it. Then we must unwrap the swaddling clothes and hold him aloft and cry aloud, O Lord Christ, thou art the source of my life, my light, my wisdom, and my joy. Thou art the power which shall unfold my consciousness to realize thy presence so I can manifest thy glory to the world. Unto thee I dedicate my atoms, my body, my mind, my service, my life forevermore. Amen. The realization of the Christ within is the work for each individual heart, but the embodiment of the Christos in human form is a work for humanity as a whole. The realization of the Christ within is the work for each individual heart, but the embodiment of the Christos in human form is a work for humanity as a whole. Mic drop. If we strive to unfold our mystic centers for their own sake, for the sake of gaining supernormal powers, if we force their development through concentration, breathing exercises, negative, sitting for development with the aid of discarnate astral beings, the centers thus unfold will admit us only into the astral or psychic world. But when we seek their unfoldment as channels for service to and the manifestation of the Christ within, they admit us into the Christ consciousness and spiritual world. Just as the sun, when shining upon fertile soil, well supplied with water, the love force in nature will bring forth perfect fruit, so will the sun, the spiritual sun, shining in our hearts, if we open our consciousness to its radiance and water them with the tenderness of love, bring forth the perfect fruit of the Christ seed implanted within all. For he who realizes God in his heart, God in his mind, God in his body, his health and strength and understanding and illumination and contentment, these are those who find that they do not have to separate themselves from life to find the Christ, who do not need learned teachers, nor abstruse treatises, nor mysterious hidden teachings handed down from long past ages, where the study of higher truths were punishable by torture, and hence they were taught only through mysterious symbols and allegories, teachings which held that mankind was too wicked to live among. Hence, those who are ready for higher truths must withdraw into retreats, must sacrifice all that was beautiful and joyous in life, and become abnormal. That is not the path of the mystic. As we enter this Aquarian age, all that is necessary is to come first into an understanding that into a realization of the Son of God, the beloved Christ, which has been within us, seeking for recognition from the beginning. All we need to do is to realize morning, noon, and night that God is love, God is light, God is life, and that this threefold God is within us, even though as yet unborn to our conscious realization. Let us say to ourselves, I will take this babe now wrapped in the hampering swaddling clothes of misconception and misunderstanding, now called by names that are not his own, who is looked upon by humanity as something to be hidden and ashamed of, or only half expressed. And I will lift him up in my consciousness and support and protect him with the strength of a father who would that his child become a useful and important citizen. I will cherish him with the tenderness of a mother who suckles her babe at her breast. Is this difficult to do? Does it not require a sage or a yogi to understand it? It is so simple that mankind has almost lost sight of it under the clouds of theology that have gathered around it. For the learned ones have cried, give me something mystical, something great. Tell me how to climb the heights, not how to seek in a manger. Tell me how to trample upon or drive out the animals from the stable, the natural functions of the body. Tell me how to mortify the flesh that I may attain spiritually. They have striven to repress all joy in life and have striven to become beggars and hermits. They have said to themselves, here am I in the midst of a wicked world. And then they have helped to make it more wicked by separating the gift from the giver, by throwing back into his face the love given them as a part of himself, by refusing to enjoy the beautiful world with which he has surrounded them and the wonderful body he has provided for their use. As well might we strip the buds from the rose and expect it to bloom. Let us stop and think who gave us this body with all its organs and functions, God himself. And surely he did not give it to us to be despised and abused, but to be used as a vehicle, a physical instrument that is absolutely necessary if the Christ within is to manifest through us in earth conditions. For this body of ours contains centers through which we can contact and ultimately express all the God faculties and God powers, which we, the real or spiritual self, inherit as sons and daughters of God, created in his image and after his likeness. If it were not that we must ultimately manifest this higher faculties and powers, there would have been no need for such centers to have been built into the body. These sacred centers are like buttons on our outer garment bodies, which button us to close to the body of God. They are like closed eyes, which we must open to see the glory of God, like gates which open into the holy temple, through which we may enter into his everlasting life and joy, like conduits through which his life and his love, his realization and power can flow to us for manifestations in our lives. This is the work to be accomplished in each heart and in humanity as a whole, namely the realization and manifestation of the presence of Christ. The realization and manifestation of the presence of Christ. Each soul born into earth life is a coal of fire, destined ultimately to be laid upon the altar of the Most High, either gladly through his own recognition of the light that lighteth everyone who cometh into the world, and swallowed up in the love, giving up its life and eagerness to help serve and save humanity, or else, when purified through suffering in many lives, after falling back like a dead cinder, when it chose to glow and shine for itself alone, it finds its true place as a willing server of the Christ and humanity. Age after age have we tried and made some measure of advance. Age after age have we heard the call of the Christ, Listen to the voice of God. Listen to the little voice that speaks within and obey. Respond to the love which is divine. Realize that God is love. There is no other God but the one God of love. Through love is the advance of the race brought about. Seek ye to find and manifest it truly. In training children, modern teachers have found it best not to emphasize their faults and threaten punishment, but to have them concentrate on that which is good and true and beautiful and constructive. And that is God's method. He tries to save his children from mistakes and their consequent suffering by having them realize the majesty and power of the Father and the beauty and love of the Mother and the light and life of the Son. Instead of accusing them of their ignorance and their faults and pointing out his superiority, he not only illumines, he chooses one. But every 2,000 years, he sends his only begotten Son, not a mortal, the light of the world, down to earth to mingle among the poorest and least learned, for they are open-minded and warm heart, to enlighten them and by his examples show how to climb the heights of spiritual attainment and step into the chariot of fire. Since nature has a material expression of God, receives a new influx of life and power of expression in matter every spring, and must also be higher and more spiritual expressions or outbreathings of God, which also manifest periodically in cyclically. Damn, I can't get those words out. For just as the rise of the sun each spring denotes the beginning of a new year in nature, so does the rise of the spiritual sun every 2,000 years mark the beginning of a new age for humanity, and this time the beginning of the great Aquarian age. If we see the physical sun rise from the outer hemisphere every spring to pour out or sacrifice its life force, that the individual forms of life and nature may have a renewed expression. Sorry, guys, I hear things outside. We may well believe the world-old teaching that there is a spiritual sun which also rises periodically to bring to the spiritual life of humanity a period of renewed activity, growth, and expression. Today, we stand on the brink of a new and wonderful manifestation, a new demonstration that God is love, a love so great that, again, he is to send to mankind an embodiment of the cosmic Christos, is to send his only begotten Son, that whoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. Today, as of old, once more are the heavens opened, our higher understanding and the angels are broadcasting their joyous song to mankind. Glory to God in the highest, and on earth, and in the earth, and in the hearts of men, created in his image, be peace, goodwill. Many advanced and illumined mortals may announce his coming and proclaim his message of divine love, but no mortal born of woman can be he who is to come. For the Son of God is not a mortal, but the manifestation of a divine and celestial being in human form, God himself manifesting in the flesh. He can continue to come to mankind as he does today, unseen by man, and walk the streets and impress the minds of those who are capable of listening and responding. But he would do more. The day is drawing and dawning near when there must be a descent into physical manifestation, where he can demonstrate the theophania and theonunesty, or the manifestation of God to men, is not merely an age-old teaching attested by those initiates of all ages, but a practical fact and the most reasonable thing in the world, and following the universal law of manifestation, or the materialization of the invisible into the visible. I'm going to put a pause really quick here. If anybody saw the Vikings, the show that was on History Channel, I believe, one of my FYI favorite shows of all time, because I have a whole section over here of Viking stuff. But why I'm mentioning this is in the show, late seasons, a man appears in Kattegat. Mysterious and creepy. And it's what people would say the emanation of Odin manifested in physical form. And Odin traveled like a wanderer. That's what he's known for, in human form, delivering pronounced amount of wisdom among the people and giving renewed faith and spiritual awakening. And you could see this in the show when this mysterious man appears. People were, that's like a god. But that show really encapsulates what this is saying, even though we're not talking about Odin, but put hence God into this form. Can be anybody. But that's a really, if you really want to get a good idea of what that physically looks like, that's a really good, I don't have all the seasons to recall which season, what episode, but it's closer toward the end. And then he shows up in the beginning too, but there are different parts where you see Odin in manifest form. And people are like not aware that that's even him. They don't equate what he's doing to that, but you get that idea. Anywho, those who seek the coming of the Son of God to mankind must realize they must first awaken the Christ consciousness in the cradle of their own hearts. And there must be at least a handful who can accomplish this without separating themselves from the world. For he must manifest in the world and not merely in selected retreats far from the haunts of men, even though he may not walk the streets publicly. By remaining in the world, he can form a cup or a chalice, a holy grail, which can be so filled with the living presence of the Godhead that his only begotten Son can come to earth in a chariot of fire and manifest to the world for its enlightenment, comfort, and salvation. There's more. It doesn't even end there. But I want to just say that that's what's happening now. We're all getting our Holy Grail. Our Templar is the encoding of our DNA that was deactivated a very, 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 very long time ago. And when we incarnated into this life, and this is just my perception, but it makes sense to me. I hope it might spark something within you. When we are born, when the sperm hits the egg, there is a God spark, because that's when your soul is anchored into the fetal form. It doesn't stay, it goes up and down, back and forth, but it's anchoring its DNA and encoding. Not just your mom and dad gave you DNA. Your soul, higher self, cosmic self, galactic self came in with coding 12 to 15D. And this is what is activating again within us. The Christ consciousness is awakened this time because this is when the sun is activating. Even if it is by some claims in Bardo, it's not going to blow up for a very long time. So don't you worry. But this is our cycle, and we are at the dawn of a new age. We need to realize this. We need to be the path that walks. We're the Christs that walk. Where are you? The image of God. This book keeps getting better. Quote, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created in him. Male and female created he them. Genesis. Quote, all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and life was the light of men. And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehend it not. St. John. Quote, as we have borne the image of the earthly, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly. 1 Corinthians. At this particular time, we may hear much about the so-called New Age. Yet few realize what we have now entered into this new Aquarian age, nor do they understand the chief characteristics of this new age and the mighty unfoldments it is destined to bring to both humanity and the planet. The chief characteristic of new age, as it turns a new page in the book of life, is that it ushers in a particular era of spiritual understanding, a new and greater comprehension of divine truth. The age in which there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, and hid that shall not be known. Therefore, let us say, lay a foundation for this new understanding by going back to the beginning of things. For time is like a huge mill wheel, and the mill of the gods forever turning round and round in its movement, men call the flight of time. As the planet is swept up and on into new regions in space, every revolution age at this mighty wheel of time brings up some universal and world-old truth and grinds out or emphasizes some new aspect or understanding of it. The farmer gathers the grain from what seemed before its cultivation and planting to be but barren ground. Yet he scarcely gives a thought to the tremendous miracle by which the inert and inorganic soil is transmuted into food for men. Doubtless the caveman who first found grain good to eat was content to feed on the wild grain as he found it. But soon the advisability of crushing it was understood, and finally the mill wheel, turning tirelessly round and round, was given the task of making it into flour as food for man. Similarly did the early races of mankind assimilate their spiritual food direct from the divine. But as the power of reason developed, direct cognition of truth became so obscure by the rapidly developing intellect that only a remnant was left of its intuition, so that the grain of spiritual truth had to be ground man's intellect could understand and assimilate it. In the beginning, when man was but a child, like an earthly father, God saw that his needs were provided for, but when he became a man and was given free will and personal responsibility, he had to put away childish things and learn to provide for himself. Thus, in the mighty mill of the gods does the wheel of time, as illustrated in the zodiac, as cycles after cycles silently succeed each other, grind the grain of the truth finer and finer, of each turn making it more assimilable for our spiritual natures to feed upon. How truly did Jesus say, quote, I have meat to feed that ye know not of. My meat is to do the will of him that sent me and to finish his work. End quote. This is the food of which mankind knows so little. although it is made up of the vital grains of truth which were given him in the beginning. And this spiritual meat man must someday find, eat, and assimilate, that he may build its strength and power into his character as spiritual growth. As the wheel slowly turns and generation succeeds generation, some there be who heed the turns of the wheel and note that on each great revolution or age, the old truths and old ideas given mankind so long ago are being grounded finer and finer, and new and mighty hidden aspects of them are being revealed as the old outer husks of material conceptions and interpretations necessary perhaps in less enlightened ages are being crushed and discarded, and the fine flower of the inner meaning is being revealed for the spiritual nourishment of humanity of the new age. Thus do we gain a new concept of the truth back of the ancient poetic aphorism. Quote, though the mills of God grind slowly, yet they grind exceedingly small. Though with patience he stands waiting, with exactness grinds he all, end quote. And this mighty wheel slowly begins its revolution for this new age. Let us examine the most fundamental teaching given us about man, that God made man in his own image. And surely, as the wheel turns and the light of the spiritual sun illumines us with a new understanding, we will see the former grains of truth arranging themselves into a new presentation of this fundamental idea. For no one who thinks seriously believes that the outer and physical form of man is the image of God. Even so-called Superman is far from being the image of God, unless we reduce our idea of God to the anthropomorphic conception of but a magnified and glorified man. An image is greatly considered to be more or less symbolic representation of some great truth or idea, fashioned and carved in such a way as to idolize some hidden or mystical truth or conception, which those who study the image must think out and grasp. And it is this inner truth or divine reality mystically hidden in man that is the image of God. This is equally true from the caveman to the Superman. This mysterious image of God in man was fashioned as a crowning achievement of manifestation in this world of ours, which was created as a new field of action in which man, through the learning of many new and most important lessons not possible on other planets, should learn to manifest that image. Indeed, this image was created male and female for this very purpose. As the light of intuition illumes this idea, we should stop and think why such emphasis was placed upon this point. For the fact of sex would not be so emphasized were it not a fundamental feature and the greatest of all lessons man came to this planet to work out and learn. In the higher spiritual realms, both masculine and feminine aspects of the image, soul, were continued unseparated within the one spiritual egg-shaped aura. But when the time came for the spiritual image to descend into and manifest in matter, it had an instrument formed out of a substance or dust of the earth, through which it contact and function on earth. And when fully materialized, this form had to come under the law of physical plane, the law of duality, and manifest in separate organisms, male and female. Hence, it was taking the divine image countless ages and innumerable incarnations to evolve a body that could even particularly yet progressively express ever new and higher aspects of the image of soul, spiritual self. For like the earth itself, the body, while a beautiful and wondrous mechanism, was not and still is not a perfected and finished product. Even yet, after all these ages of evolution, man has as many hidden mysteries to unfold within himself as the earth within itself. And the earth reveals her mysteries to man only as he develops the capacity to understand and learns the corresponding lessons within himself. In the early stages of spiritual unfoldment, this image of God is like a babe wrapped in a swaddling cloth, yet predestined to manifest in and through man, making him as one of us, knowing good and evil. As the masculine and feminine types of mind look at things from different angles, each must create after his or her own way of thinking their individual realization of image of God within and strive to bring it forth into their lives. Someone's thinking about me. My nose is very itchy. As the wheel of time grinds on, it finds much chaff, and from the hopperful of certain periods, seemingly little flour, yet even the chaff is the outer husk of the grain. And as the chaff, when spread upon the ground or when reduced to ashes, helps to fertilize the ground, so with the chaff ground out in man's evolution, those who cannot and will not accept and flow the laws of spiritual growth and unfoldment, and those who persist in evil, opposition to law, as the wheel of life grinds on, are ground out as the chaff of humanity from those who represent the flower, because the latter are striving to work with the law, helping make smooth the way of understanding and helping to feed mankind with spiritual food. In other words, with the ushering in of the new Aquarian age, the time has come when those who are spiritually unevolved and those who refuse to work with God's law in spite of all the teachings and helps which God has given them will not be permitted to incarnate again until those who are advanced and faithful to the law have had an opportunity to reach a certain advanced stage. That's very important to note. Of spiritual unfoldment, unhampered by the undeveloped slothful ones. The latter, however, are not neglected, but for a certain cycle remain in other realms, much as incognizable children might be shut away from their law-abiding companions in a special school or reformatory till they had learned the needed lessons. Pause here. Pause, 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 pause. Dolores Cannon, the law of one. My analogy of two buildings with the negative polarity and the positive polarity, and the people in the park in between both buildings. All that work between the law of one, right there, and Dolores Cannon, between those two, if you read them, grasp them, they say the same thing. The difference is, as we are harvested, those of the negative polarity, the self-lovely people, they're going to one building, and the people of a service to others and God, positive polarity, are going to another. Here's a caveat to all that. Dolores Cannon talks about separation of earth, old and new. What they're saying is happening in our reality right now. People who cannot, and this doesn't mean they're going to a negative polarized place. The people who are passing away right now, many of them just can't handle the vibrations and the vibratory states that are happening, coming in with the changes. Our DNA is upgrading. Some of us are already on a astral, celestial, ethereal realm, already are on 48 strains. Not all, but a lot of people are starting, they're around between 12 and 24 strains already. Those of us who are meant to stay are staying here. Things aren't just magically going to change. You're getting your Nasara Jasara and the world is going to be kumbaya. It doesn't work like that. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It doesn't. These negative, neglected, service to self people, they're leaving. They're going bye-bye. Bye-bye. Adios. Because of what you did. But I can't judge, that's for God to do. they're going either into the ethereal, or they're going to be incarnated on another planet of a negative service of self. Or they might just learn their lessons and heal, and they are free choice to choose either to be reincarnated again in third density somewhere else, or shift. But we're here. And we're going to not have to deal with these things. But the next stage is really hard, because there's a lot of people who feel that they're not service to self, but they really necessarily are, because all they're thinking about is money, 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 money. And it's not necessarily that money is the root of all evil. It can be if you intend to will it that. But people are not thinking about, well, I have a platform, I'm helping all these, I'm trying to give news and learnings, teachings to people. And yet when they receive all this beautiful, lovely income that they're earning or they're receiving by help, are they manifesting something good for others? Or are they greedily hanging on to it, taking it, making it gold and silver, but are they doing anything for the people that really need help? And I come into this and saying this because I'm seeing it. People who talk all kinds of spiritual stuff, who have all these little networks hanging and they're getting money, they're getting receiving, they're getting and receiving. I don't see you're investing in yourself by trying to go to different places and talking good talks, getting people riled up and revved up to take the fight on. And, we got to get rid of this evil stuff. I get it. And that takes money, right? Great. But where's all the excess going? Yes, take care of yourself. Everybody has to take care of themselves. That's why I'm out looking for another job. But if I had exposable income like some of these people do, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, and people are crying out that they need some sort of assistance just to be stood up on their feet. No one's saying give somebody a whole new life. No, they have to work for that themselves. They have a plan with God. But I just think about my case last year. If I didn't have this channel and I didn't have amazing souls, people that had hearts, that understood where my circumstances were and understood the state that I lived in, literally and figuratively. I lived in a state that is still to this day very dictatorial and irrational, went against everything that I had a contract with the city to work. Everything was broken. Everything was superseded. I'm stupid. I'm the killer of it all. And I lost everything. And in the moment, I don't have anybody to fall back on. It's just me. So I had amazing people on this channel help me out so that I could live day to day. I lived in survival mode literally every day, not knowing what I was going to eat, what should I save, what am I doing? My head was all over the place because I didn't know what to do. I kept putting and manifesting, putting action into motion, calling people, getting people's cell phone numbers, trying to, in chats, hey, I need help. Deaf's ears. Deaf's ears. I lived a year and a half not knowing if I was going to survive day to day, how the bills were going to get paid. How am I going to eat? What am I going to do with the cats? I don't want to live in a world like that anymore. And I know a lot of people don't want to live in that kind of world either. But what does Jesus say? But for a certain cycle, remain in other realms so they can learn. while we have our spiritual unfoldment unhampered. That would be nice. But there's a lot of unraveling to do. A lot of that unraveling to do moving forward in this time of now. This was written a long time ago, but if we were to modernize it and update it to the time of now, these things are not happening overnight. We wrote in our own plan, in our own Akash. If you want to call it your Akash, you want to call it your soul path, whatever it is, you wrote it for yourself. You wrote your script. You wrote certain dynamics of it, and you wrote in when you were ascending physically. And that in whatever manner it takes, whether it be physical body death or new portal, new dimension, Stargate, here we go, yay! Whatever that looks like, we wrote it in for ourselves. And we, unless you read your Akash, and that's always ever changing because you keep ascending, your timeline keeps moving. I know I'm ranting. I know. But this is Law of One material and Dolores Cannon material. Smack in your face. And here again, the Curtises come in for the rescue with like this beautiful unfolded explanation. And we're not done yet. So here we go. Back to the book. Although man brings much inharmony and evil into the world through his misuse of the materials and forces created by God, which man should use to fashion an Eden of peace and harmony, nevertheless, all inharmony and evil is but temporary, is but the irritating chaff which must be separated from the flower. For only that which is in harmony with divine law can endure. What could be a plainer answer to the oft repeated question that since we can conceive of God as creating only good, how came evil into the world? God spake the word and created a world of beauty and harmony because he spake according to the laws of beauty and harmony. Man also speaks words which are creating his world. Man also speaks words which are creating his world. Not only his world within, but his general atmosphere, his conditions in life, and his environment. And he has to live in that world of his own creation. If his words have not been constructive, if they have not been spoken according to the laws of beauty and harmony, then he finds himself living in a world of self-created inharmony, which he calls evil. And he must suffer in his self-made world of inharmony until he learns how to create his true world of beauty and harmony. The very fact that man can create such a world is a proof that man is created in the image of God with the God-given power to create a world, beauty and harmony and joy if he will. And he must keep on incarnating again and again, reaping the results of his creations until he learns to create in the image of God and not in the image of man. I need a gravel. I don't have a mic. I have a mic, but it's not really like a mic. It's a mic drop moment right there. But if man has created all the evil, sin, sickness, and death from which he suffers, how did he get the power to do so? As a son of God created in his image, he has so much power as the wheel has to grind the flour from out the golden grain and cast the chaff aside. And as the chaff can be utilized either to bring forth better crops, or it can be piled in a useless or harmful heap, so with man's mistakes and evil creations, They can be turned to good if he learns the lessons from the suffering which they bring, or they can accumulate as a great burden which hampers his evolution until consumed by the fire of law, as a karmic suffering, which he must reap both for himself and for the world into which he has sent it forth, and whose aura he has tainted with such creations. But out of the ashes of some experiences, in humility and sorrow, will he gradually bring forth a better and higher understanding of divine law and divine love, which is back of seeming stern, exact justice. At present, the divine life which pours through us from the image of God within, and which St. John tells us is the light of men, is the true spiritual light which, although shining within each soul born into the world, is obscured by the darkness of man's inharmony, selfishness, disobedience, and wrong thinking, and the darkness comprehended it not. Nevertheless, the life that is the light of man is still shining in every heart, but only as man believes this and asks for help to comprehend and utilize it, can the darkness which hides the light like a dense, chilling fog be dispelled. The Bible sets forth the fundamental truths concerning the image of God and its light, and God has given to man the light of reason, which it is his duty to analyze, understand, and make use of these truths for himself and all the world, and not cry out for God to do it for him. For since each soul has the life that is the light of man, each has at least a spark of understanding, which it is his privilege and duty to fan and expand into a steady glowing light, which shall illume his pathway through life. Hence, man has the power to dissipate the darkness if he will, and create a new world for himself. But alas, many cry out that the darkness grows blacker and more dense the more they strive. How can they see and comprehend, since they were born into such hampering and limited earth conditions? We must remember that this darkness and these hampering conditions are the result of our lack of accomplishment in this and past lives, during which we created darkness rather than light. We find ourselves in such conditions not as a punishment, but as the best conditions in which to learn our lessons and unfold the lacking qualities and powers necessary to manifest the image of God. For if we will not learn by precept, we must learn by experience. If we refuse to follow the divine law as set forth by the great teachers of all ages, we must be allowed to find out for ourselves that unless we use God's gifts as they were intended to be used, we will bring only disappointment, sorrow, and suffering upon ourselves. The divine life can manifest either as a radiant light leading us onward and upward, or as a fire consuming the chaff which we have neglected or refused to dispose of, or upon which we are trying to feed instead of the flower, for we must all reap the results of our own creations. Many have sat down beside the chaff as the mighty wheel grinds out the golden grain, and wondered at the darkness caused by the dust of its continual showers. Many have made their abiding place in the chaff, which they called worldly success or pleasure or self-aggrandizement or wealth, because the flakes of chaff have a golden glitter as they float for the moment in the sunshine as they fall to earth. But when the world they have built for themselves from the chaff grows old and moldy, or when the storms beat upon it and it dissolves into a viscid mass about that and engulfs them, they bitterly bewail their fate and cry out that there can be no image of God within, no divine law, no divine love, or the world would not be allowed to get in such a condition. But they forget that while the substance of the outer conditions, the chaff, was created by God and would be used to fertilize their growth and make pleasant and comfortable and happy their sojourn here on earth, it was not made for their permanent abiding place. While we must live in the world, we must not identify ourselves with it or allow it and its concerns to occupy the supreme place in our consciousness and life. We should endeavor to use all things and conditions for his glory, to bring forth the image of God that is within us and allow it to manifest and illumine our lives. We must never blame God for our limitations or our failures, for we alone are to blame. Once we realize this fundamental truth, can begin consciously to redeem our failures and overcome our limitations by seeking to let the light of the image shine forth. For as long as we have life, we have the light of God and his power and creativeness within us. Since the image of God is not only the light of men, but it is also the source of our physical life, it has built into our very flesh centers or avenues for the manifestation of all God powers and possibilities, which we inherit as sons of God. He has given us a mind with the power of reaching up to the God consciousness, as well as regulate wisely all the affairs of our outer life toward the ultimate outshining of his image, like triple light from which it sprang, and the triple light of the earth, sun, and moon, and stars. This mind of ours is threefold in aspects: the superconscious sun, rational stars, and subconscious moon, mind. God also created man with many other centers of expression, each of which is threefold in its nature. One aspect to rule the physical and bring about peace, harmony, and perfect health and happiness. One to bring him into conscious touch with the divine, and one to radiate the light and life power of the image within. This is man, a trinity of light, which is capable of so manifesting in his life as to be a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path, the path of illumination and attainment. How are we to gain this unfoldment and illumination? Not by laboriously practicing various exercises which are said to unfold centers which the vast majority of persons are not ready to develop, and whose untimely stimulation in the unprepared presents grave dangers, but by seeking to find and correlate with the image of God within, the Christ within our hearts, and cultivate and radiate all that pertains to the heart center, and thus create a world wherein love and the Christ power shall dominate. For have we not been told, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Again, I'm going to put a tiny pause. I know this is going on for a long time, but this is not to say that doing meditations, doing chakra work, doing yoga, doing all whatever, Reiki and all that fun stuff, okay? I'm not knocking any of it because I love it all. But for the average day normal person who don't seek those things out or understand them, everybody's individual. We're all individuated. So you got to go within and feel what is right for you. Does that make sense? It's not to take away all those other modalities that help people find the God source within themselves. Some people take an easy go within and here's God. Oh, I found it. Other people take a lot longer, and it takes a lot of modalities to find. And again, reminder, this is again Bible based, and not everybody has read the Bible. I have not. I'm spiritual. I recognize everything that they're saying and I agree with it. But just as a caveat, there are modalities not everybody is ready for. You got to go within to know what is right and what is for you. And if you're one of those people that need to experiment, do it at the most simplistic, simple level. Don't just jump into some advanced sitting there and getting your Maharic seal and clearing ley lines. Like, you can't just jump into those things. You have to accumulate that vibratory state, the oscillating energy within your body, to hit your auric and your toroidal field in order for you to even understand, comprehend, understand, and get what is supposed to happen for you. And that's going to be done on an individualized basis for everybody. So if you're somebody that has gone within, you're not really getting that, and you're seeking God, and it's just something that's not sparking within you, and you try something else, you're doing your chakras, you're doing other forms and modalities, start simple. Don't overwhelm your body. We're not here to have human combustion happen, because that's what happens when you're filled so much with vibrations and frequency that you have no idea what you're doing. And then it accumulates and you can explode. Unsolved mysteries, early 80s. It does exist. Back to the book. Only as we learn to recognize the Christ, which is our life, our light, and our guide, we can begin to manifest the image of God, which is our real divine self. This can be accomplished first by going directly to him in prayer and aspiration, and asking daily and hourly for his guidance and help, and for a realization of a truth of the axiom, as man thinketh in his heart, so it is he. But it must be a realization of the heart, a realization which nothing can disturb, and not mere affirmations of the head, a realization of the image of God within. The second step is through his guidance and power to curb, control, and without despising, wisely use all the physical centers, faculties, and functions, realizing that in their perfect functioning and wise use, we are obeying the will of God, who created them to aid us in manifesting his image. For as they are dominated, controlled, and used in a natural, normal, and pure manner, their corresponding spiritual aspects will in due time grow, develop, and function normally without being forced through direct conception upon them. The most rapid method of aiding this development is to learn to express love, not love fashioned after man's conception, love of possession, love of power, love of self-indulgence. For that holds within it the very darkness, selfishness, lust, jealousy, greed, which real love is meant to vanquish. It is divine love we must learn to understand and express if we are to banish the darkness from our lives. Only as we keep our minds and hearts fixed on the idea that the end to be achieved is conscious union with God, and tread the path in a normal but inspired way, guided by the light from his image, can we show by our lives how blessed is the way, the truth, and life. Thus can we lead others into the fullness of the outshining of that light, and help them to manifest the image that is within them. The same laws and process we see exemplified in nature when the sun rises after a night of darkness, and when spring follows a desolate and bitter winter, are fulfilled in ourselves, but we can hasten or retard the dawn of the new day and the coming of our spiritual springtime according to our response or lack of response to that divine life, which is the life of men and resulting manifestation of the image of God. Okay, I think there's no number on. See, these pages are not numbered. Okay, I think this might be the last part. Maybe. Emmanuel. Quote, behold, a virgin shall be with child and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call him Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us. End quote. St. Matthew. In these momentous times, each awakened personality and the very age itself is passed through a period when wonderful prophecies are being fulfilled. Although allegorically described in the Bible, this Aquarian age has turned many pages of its life history. Many of the prophecies are destined to be actually fulfilled. As applied to himself, the mystic interprets the story of Jesus' life as set forth in the Gospels as an allegory explaining the birth of the Christ consciousness in each heart when the proper stage of soul unfoldment is reached and the various stages of its manifestation until the at-one-ment with the Father in heaven is obtained. It is this emanation of divinity which lies buried in the mystical heart center of each human being, like a seed in the ground that must be quickened and awakened from its dormant state by every virgin heart. That is, by every heart that has been purified and made ready for this mystical birth. This law is illustrated in the passage, quote, "The Holy Ghost shall come upon thee, and the power of the highest shall overshadow thee. Therefore also that holy thing which shall be born of thee shall be called the Son of God." Following out the old medieval idea of there being something impure in sex, many students have thought that this passage indicated that there must be some mysterious way whereby a physical child could be generated without the use of sex function. But since a physical body cannot be generated without a physical father, it is evident that the passage cannot refer to the generation of a physical body by symbols and the birth of Christ consciousness in the heart, symbolized by Mary, of all who have reached the stage of spiritual unfoldment, where they can listen to the inner voice and respond to the overshadowing of Holy Ghost, Mother, and the power of the highest Father. The word translated virgin is alma, whose root meaning is hidden, secret, or concealed. As used in the text, it refers to one who has never been seen by man. Mystically interpreted, the verse, quote, at the head of this chapter means, "Behold, alma," or that which is concealed, hidden, secret, and never seen by man, shall have a new conception and bring forth a new and positive male manifestation of God within us. The new manifestation is brought forth in the concealed mystery chamber of the spiritual heart, where the Holy Ghost and power of the highest shall unite to bring forth this new spiritual child, whose name shall be called Emmanuel, or God within us. Although this passage is usually connected with the birth of Jesus, it is not properly so connected, for nowhere in the Bible was he ever called Emmanuel. The prophecy was an announcement of the inevitable result of the downpouring of a mighty Christ force into the heart that has become pure, virgin pure. The name Emmanuel, therefore, refers to the birth of the Christ consciousness within each heart, while the name Jesus refers to the manifestation to the world of the divine consciousness, which is phenomenally embodied in each age in the person of the Avatar. In medieval days, it was taught that the worship of God in heaven was unnecessary to strive and mortify the body and degrade as a temper the God within. Those misguided ones who followed the doctrine were thus working directly against bringing forth the Emmanuel within them. But as the sweep of cosmic cycles brings us closer to a realization of that new age contains for us, and the few who have made their hearts pure, virgin pure, see the sign of the Son of Man in heaven and water pot of Aquarius pouring out the mystic water of life upon humanity, their vision is illumined, and within their longing hearts, they feel the stirring of a new life, like a babe quickening in a mother's womb. They feel it struggling to cast off the hampering, swaddling clothes of the outer consciousness of the misconception and misunderstanding, for when they listen in the silence, they seem to hear a tiny voice whispering, "I am the living Christ seed planted in your heart. But I can grow only as you nourish me with your attention and water me with divine love. I am divine, even as my Father in heaven is divine, and my presence makes you divine. I am immortal, and my life within you will make you immortal if you feed on me in your heart with prayer and thanksgiving. All who would bring forth this wonderful child, Emmanuel, so long hidden within, must seek him so earnestly and desire him to ardently, that the mystical centers in which he dwells will penetrate by and so fill with aspiration Christ's love, that he will be awakened from his long sleep. Then they will be so filled with the overwhelming desire to find him and serve him, that all their faculties, the disciples, are ready to leave all and follow him. Thus will these centers be stimulated and quickened, his growth promoted. Nothing anyone can do or say can help us know him. No matter how illumined a teacher may be, he can only tell us about Emmanuel. To know him for ourselves, he must be born within us. And we must correlate with him, bring our problems to him, and let him guide our lives. It may be that we are born with a strong sense of duty, brought over from a past life to certain people or to certain causes. And this may tend to make us reluctant to cope with the duties confronting us today, but we can safely leave the adjustment of past karma in the hands of the Lord of karma, knowing they will inevitably find a way for us to fulfill it. Often we fulfill it unconsciously by our readiness to take off the duty that lies nearest. Holding on to some fancy duty of the past only makes our burden heavier, while doing the duty that is plainly set before us in the present will lift the burden and leave us free to take new steps onward. If we believe that we should hold back from some positive duty confronting us in this life because of some unfilled duty or unlearned lesson of the past, we should remember that the present day duties are ours because of the past. Hence, the past duties can best be worked out by resolutely fulfilling those of the present. A still greater mistake is to hold on to any old idea, thought, habit, or seeming duty that is hampering to growth and manifestation of a newly awakened Christ consciousness within. This is one of the most important decisions life holds for us, and one which each awakened soul must decide for himself. For many almost fear to believe that they have felt the stir of the Christ within their hearts, that they have seen his light or heard his voice or felt the warmth of his love within them. Yet we can only recognize the inner guidance if we seek it, for with the development of intuition and later the opening of our mystic centers, they come as a surety, a calm conviction, which quiets all doubts, even though we may not be unfolded enough to hear the inner voice. This new revealed spiritual consciousness, or Emmanuel, gives to the entire body a new vibration and often a new sensation of glowing warmth, a new power of endurance, a new realization that we are not alone, nor weak, nor ignorant. We realize that the divinity that shapes us has been found, and that with its help can consciously shape our own ends. Like the wise men of the Bible story, we may have long since seen his star in the east and have journeyed footsore and worry over moor and fen over mountain crag and trackless desert. Yet when we have found and recognized and worship him and have laid the gifts of all our talents at his feet, we must then return to our own country. In other words, realization alone is not enough. From the country of the realization, the far country from which we set out upon our search, we must bring back into our daily lives the glow of the living fire of divinity. We must let the power and consciousness of Emmanuel fill our hearts, our minds, our bodies, and manifest in our lives as a new ability to understand life and our fellow man, a new power to accomplish his will in everyday affairs. Yet having thus brought forth Emmanuel into the affairs of the outer world, we must be careful not to call attention to him, not to boast or point to our newly acquired realization and powers, lest the Herod of skeptical worlds or the Herod of our old habits of thought and life slay the young child. In fact, he must remain hidden and unheard herald until he is mystically 12 years of age. then he will be able to meet all the doctors in the temple, or all the reason and logic of our minds, and not only protect himself, but astonish them with his wisdom. The realization of this new font of life, love, and power of Emmanuel within us is the true interpretation of an old revival hymn, now so widely condemned as cannibalistic. Oh, I know this one. Quote, "There is a fountain filled with blood, drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners plunge beneath the flood, lose all their guilty stains. For since the blood is the carrier of life force of the body, it is used to symbolize the spiritual life force of the Christ. And since the heart is the source of that fountain of blood, the heart is the center in which Emmanuel, the source of God within us, is to be found. In fact, the true spiritual heart is the cradle in which the Christ consciousness is born. One of the vital differences between man and the lower animals is that man possesses certain centers which are only emblematic in the animals. In the majority of humanity, these mystic centers are but little developed, hence their functions and possibilities are scarcely suspected. Especially is this true of the heart center, for while the chief function of the physical heart is to pump blood through the body and keep its physical life force flowing, the spiritual heart is the center through which man contacts the cosmic currents of the living Christ force and keeps it flowing through him. Only as we cultivate this center and let the Christ force flow through us unimpeded can we unfold our other centers one by one until we become the Lord of creation and fulfill the mandate given us when man began his cycle of evolution on this planet. Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. The body of man is indeed a marvelous creation, but man himself must find the key which will unlock the mysterious inner chamber wherein Emmanuel, the God within us, lies hidden. Today, many are striving to unfold this mystic centers through various physical exercises and yoga practices. But Emmanuel is born within the heart, each developed as may result can only open the consciousness to the astral world and not to the spiritual world. Such an opening to the astral world not only stimulates our faculties and tendencies, both good and evil, but as it opens new avenues of consciousness, it also subjects us to terrible forces and temptations from the astral. And unless Emmanuel has already been born and begun to rule within us, we are likely to be swept away into terrible conditions of both body and mind, often to complete mental and physical breakdown, just as the pregnant mother who does not correlate with the incarnating soul is often swept into currents of inharmony caused by the conflict of many undeveloped souls who are fighting for the incarnation through her, even to the point of causing what is termed puerperal insanity. I know I did not pronounce that properly. Never forget that the love and wise guidance of Emmanuel, who lovingly waits within, must first be unfolded if we are to unfold the other centers constructively and safely and grow as a flower grows. Through aspirations, realization, understanding, and devotion, we must find Emmanuel, and one by one, in sacred awe, unwrap the swaddling bands of misconception, which hide him from our sight and manifest him in our lives. To do this, we must understand that God is just as truly within us here and now, as it is true that the life force is in the blood here and now. And just as the life force, although unseen and often unrecognized, yet potentially manifests in the blood to bring us health, strength, vitality, and the power to manifest physical life. Just as surely does the inner spiritual life force of Emmanuel, although unseen and unrecognized, flow through us, giving us comfort, guidance, strength, and the power to manifest our spiritual life. From the heart that is spiritually unfolded, there goes forth a golden radiance, which shines like the fabled pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. Like children, we hear about and often dream of finding this pot of gold, but alas, we know not where to look. It looks so close, yet when we start out to find it, the journey seems endless. But if we have faith and follow our inner guidance and keep our mind's eye fixed upon the spiritual rainbow, the reflection of the color rays produced by the shining of the sun of God on our tears, as we look up to him after a storm, we realize that all its wondrous colors come from God, or are reflected from the pot of gold within our hearts, even though we may see the colors only after a storm. Someday we will find that pot of gold not afar off at the other end of the rainbow, but within us, as Emmanuel, the greatest gift of God to man. And if you download the PDF version of this book, at the end of it, there is a bunch of prayers that you could say. Prayers of the Order of Christian Mystics, a prayer for light, morning prayer, healing prayer, prayer of protection, prayer of demonstration, prayer to the divine indweller, prayer of the Divine Mother, grace before meals, prayer of devotion, prayer of world harmony, prayer of the Christ power, evening prayer. So you can find, I'm not going to read all of that. I'm way past my time, but we are finished finally with this book. And it was incredible, if I must say so myself. Loved this book. So much so. I mean, by far, it's in my top 10 to recommend now to people, because I think people need to read this. A lot of people who are on the Bible paradigm really need to read these books and understand them and understand them and kumbaya, bring it into this heart center, because it really needs to be. Okay. Sending each and every one of you light, love, protection, and shielding. Please don't forget to hit that like, thumbs up, share, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and thank you to all the new subscribers. So excited. And if you get anything from my work, all the links will be in the description box for you, will, guys. Every little bit does help. It does. And until the next one, guys, we're going to start a new one by them, and I'm really excited. Until the next time, guys, I hope you enjoyed this very long read, but necessary.